My husband said he cheated on me, and I said, then stay with her. For a moment, neither of us breathed. The air between us was thick enough to break. He stared like he was waiting for the tears, the begging, the questions. But they never came. Because somewhere between the first lie and this confession, I'd already mourned our marriage. The clock ticked once, loud and cruel. Outside, rain hammered the window as if the world itself wanted to drown the silence. He rubbed the back of his neck and muttered, "It wasn't supposed to happen." I almost laughed. Because betrayal never just happens, it's built, brick by brick, from every secret you protect. Then stay with her, I repeated. This time my voice didn't shake. He blinked, confused. You don't mean that. I looked straight at him. Oh, I do. You've already chosen her. You might as well finish what you started. He opened his mouth to argue, then shut it again. For the first time, I saw guilt trying to hide behind arrogance, and I realized something no one tells you about heartbreak. It doesn't explode. It empties you quietly, until there's nothing left to beg with. Before him, my world had color. Daniel was the kind of man who could turn a crowded room into a secret between two people. The first night we met, he spilled coffee on my dress and spent 20 minutes apologizing while I laughed. That laugh became our language. Back then, I thought love meant finding someone who noticed everything about you. 6 years later, he still noticed, but only to control. Where I went, what I wore, who texted. It happened slowly, disguised as care. Text me when you get home. That dress is a little much, don't you think? Little sentences that sounded protective until they started sounding like permission. But I kept believing the story we'd written together, even when the ink started to fade. The first crack appeared in the quiet. He stopped saying goodnight, stopped calling on his lunch breaks. His laughter, once loud enough to fill a room, turned into polite smiles and short answers. When I asked what was wrong, he said work was stressful. When I reached for him in bed, he rolled away, mumbling about exhaustion. And when he finally kissed me, it felt like muscle memory. Something done out of habit, not love. Still, I convinced myself that marriage was about patience. That all couples drift sometimes. That the man I loved was just lost in the noise of adulthood. But the truth was simpler. He was already halfway gone. I didn't catch him through detective work. No hidden cameras, no private investigator, just an unlocked phone buzzing on a Sunday morning. He was in the shower. Steam filled the hallway, carrying the smell of his new cologne. The one I'd never liked because it didn't smell like him. The message preview glowed on the screen. Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again. My fingers hesitated above the phone. I wanted to look and I didn't. But curiosity is what's left when trust dies. The chat was full of tiny betrayals, heart emojis, hotel addresses, photos cropped just enough to hide faces. Every line felt like a paper cut. Too small to scream over, but deep enough to bleed forever. When he walked out of the bathroom and saw me holding his phone, he didn't even flinch, he just stared. Give that back, he said quietly. Why? Because it's private. I laughed, a hollow, dangerous sound I didn't recognize as mine. Private? You mean secret? There's a difference. He reached for the phone, but I didn't move. Who is she? It doesn't matter. It does to me. Silence. Then, the final truth wrapped in a shrug. It just happened. Those words hit harder than the cheating itself, because it just happened meant I wasn't worth a choice. That's when I said it again, slower this time, so he couldn't pretend not to hear. Then stay with her. I put the phone on the table and walked away. No yelling, no scene, just the sound of the rain and my footsteps heading toward the door. Because sometimes the loudest revenge is walking out so quietly that they don't realize you're gone until the silence starts answering for you. Before the confession, before the silence, before her, there was us. The version of Daniel and me that people pointed at and said, that's what real love looks like. He was everything I'd prayed for, and everything I didn't know I'd fear one day. He was confident but gentle, funny in the way that made everyone in the room lean closer. And when he looked at me, it felt like I'd finally been chosen. We met at a friend's engagement party, a noisy night full of bad music and cheap wine. I spilled juice on his shirt, he handed me a napkin, and our eyes met for just long enough to rewrite the evening. He said, "You owe me a coffee." I said, "Only if you drink it black." We both laughed. I didn't know it then, but that was the first time he decided to own a piece of my world. He texted that night, "Can't sleep. Still thinking about you." And for weeks, I lived inside that message. The beginning was perfect. Flowers, long drives, late-night calls that stretched past 2 a.m. He'd listen to my dreams, tell me he'd never met anyone like me. And I believed him. Because love sounds like truth when you're lonely enough to need it. After we got married, things stayed beautiful for a while. We moved into a small apartment on the east side of the city, tiny balcony, creaky floors, but it felt like heaven because it was ours. He'd cook breakfast on Sundays, sing off-key to whatever song was playing, and I'd watch him and think, this is what forever looks like. But forever has a way of changing shape. It started small, comments that sounded like jokes but weren't. You don't need that much makeup, you're prettier natural. You spend too much time with your friends, babe, they don't get us. Then came the guilt. Soft-spoken but sharp enough to stick. You really can't skip one dinner with them for me? You're leaving me alone again? At first, I called it passion. Because movies teach us that jealousy means love. That wanting to be your entire world is romantic. But it's not. It's a warning. Control doesn't always enter your life like a monster. Sometimes it knocks politely. Sometimes it holds your hand. I stopped noticing how small I'd become. Stopped laughing as loud. Stopped dressing the way I liked. Every choice I made went through an invisible filter. Will this make him happy? Will this make him proud? And for a while, I thought that was normal. That's what being a wife meant. Compromise, understanding, balance. But compromise shouldn't cost you yourself. He began managing our bills, then my schedule. Soon, even my friends started drifting away. Because every time I saw them, there'd be an argument waiting for me at home. One night, I stayed late at work finishing a report. When I got home, he was pacing the living room. Where were you? At work. You knew I had a deadline. Don't lie to me. That was the first time I saw it. The anger he kept hidden behind his smile. The kind of anger that didn't need volume to be terrifying. He didn't touch me. He didn't have to. His words did the damage. You think I don't know when you're lying? I see everything. And maybe that's what broke me most. Realizing that the man who once made me feel seen now watched me like a guard watches a prisoner. I used to wait for apologies. They never came. Instead, he'd bring home flowers, kiss me on the forehead, whisper, "You know I only worry because I love you." Love. He used that word like a weapon, and every time he said it, I believed it a little less. Because sometimes the scariest part of losing someone is realizing they already started losing you long before you noticed. Have you ever mistaken control for care? Tell me in the comments. What's the smallest thing someone ever did that made you realize it wasn't love anymore? It was a Sunday. The kind of soft, harmless morning that makes you forget life can hurt. Daniel was humming in the shower. Sunlight through the curtains, coffee cooling on the nightstand. Normal, cruel, ordinary normal. Then his phone buzzed. Once, twice, then again, 3 messages in a row from a name I didn't recognize. I told myself to ignore it. Trust, I reminded myself, is stronger than curiosity. But trust had been starving for months, and curiosity is what love becomes when it's been left alone too long. I picked up the phone. Last night was perfect. I can still feel you. Same place Tuesday? I'll book it this time. Use the back entrance. She's getting suspicious. My hands went cold. I didn't scroll at first. I just stared at those 3 lines and felt the room tilt. Then I opened the thread. Weeks. Photos. Cropped smiles in hotel mirrors. Receipts. Restaurant names we'd once promised we'd try together. Messages at hours he said he was stuck at the office. And voice notes. Soft, breathy. Too intimate to mistake for anything else. I pressed play on one because part of me still wanted to be wrong. You taste like you missed me. Her voice, not mine. A life running parallel to mine, living off the time I thought was ours. I scrolled higher. There it was, the first message. 3 months ago. The beginning was clumsy and cautious, then confident, then entitled. As if the longer it lasted, the more it became a right instead of a sin. My reflection in the black screen looked like someone else's face. Eyes I didn't recognize, jaw tight enough to crack. The shower turned off. I put the phone down and sat at the edge of the bed. He walked out in a towel, saw me, and stilled. No panic, no apology. Just that careful, measured breath of a man calculating a story. Give me the phone, he said. Who is Elle? I asked. Work. I laughed. It sounded wrong, unfamiliar, like metal scraping glass. Work sends selfies from a hotel bathroom at 2 a.m.? He didn't reach for the device again. He reached for something else. confidence. You shouldn't be going through my messages. You shouldn't be writing them, I said. Silence. The kind that makes you hear your own heartbeat. I watched his eyes move. Left, right, down, searching for a version that would hurt less. It's not what you think. Then say what it is. He hesitated just long enough to make everything worse. It just happened. Those 3 words. They don't arrive alone. They bring a funeral with them. I stood, not to loom, to stop myself from drowning. Where? I asked. My voice surprised me, calm, almost kind. Which lie do you want to keep? The Tuesdays, the overnights, the staff party you skipped because you were tired? His jaw flexed. He looked past me, at the window, at anything that wasn't my face. I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't mean for me to find out, I corrected. He tried for softness, the old weapon. I still love you. I almost wished he'd shouted. Shouting would have been honest. Love doesn't book hotels, I said. Love doesn't come home wearing a cologne that isn't yours. He blinked at that. Tiny, guilty. Then quietly. I'll end it. The relief he expected didn't show up. Nothing arrived. I was empty where begging used to live. I walked to the dresser, opened the top drawer, and took out the ring box he could never throw away. Inside were keepsakes, a concert wristband, a note he once tucked under my wiper blade, a dried petal from our wedding bouquet. I set the box between us like a verdict. You already did, I said. You ended it the night you chose her and came home to me. He looked young all of a sudden. Boyish, scared. So what now? You want me to crawl? To say I'm trash? I'll do it. I shook my head. No. I want you to be honest once. Silence stretched until it hurt. Do you love her? I asked. He didn't answer. You don't need words when your face admits first. That was the moment everything inside me clicked into place. The future I'd been gripping let go of me. I didn't fall. I stood up straighter. I picked up his phone and handed it back to him like something I'd borrowed and no longer needed. My husband said he cheated on me. I told the room, the walls, myself. Then I looked at him and finished the sentence out loud. Then stay with her. He flinched, barely. But I saw it. He reached for my wrist. I stepped back. He tried to gather all the old versions of us into his eyes. First date, first kiss, first apartment. Memories don't negotiate when truth arrives. I walked past him to the door. No suitcase, no speech, just keys and breath and a spine that remembered how to hold me. His voice chased me down the hall. Not loud, low, tight, ugly. You'll regret this. I paused with my hand on the knob. Not because I was unsure, because I wanted the last line to belong to the woman who finally recognized herself. I already regret what I forgave, I said. Then I stepped into the rain. The cold didn't sting. It crowned me. What I didn't know walking down those stairs with nothing but my name was that the hardest part wasn't leaving a man. It was learning how to stop apologizing to the mirror he'd left behind. The first night after I left was louder than any argument we ever had. Not because of sound, because of silence. The kind of silence that hums in your bones, that forces you to listen to everything you've been avoiding. I stayed in a motel off the highway, one of those anonymous places that smell like bleach and old air. I didn't unpack. I just sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hand, watching his name light up the screen over and over. 10 missed calls, 3 voicemails, then a message. Please, just talk to me. I didn't. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because I knew that if I heard his voice, the part of me that still loved the liar would want to listen. Grief is strange like that. It doesn't come after the ending. It is the ending. I tried to sleep. But the mattress felt like regret, and every creak in the walls sounded like his footsteps. At 3 a.m., I sat up and started writing in the motel notepad. You don't get to decide how my story ends. It wasn't poetry. It was survival. The second day was worse. I woke to sunlight and nausea. That moment when your body forgets for a heartbeat that everything has changed, then remembers all at once. The phone kept ringing. I kept not answering. By evening, the messages changed. They went from, I'm sorry, to, you can't just vanish like this. From guilt to control in under 12 hours. That's how you know someone isn't sorry. They're scared of losing power, not you. I deleted every message. Then I blocked his number. Then I cried so hard I had to sit on the floor because my legs couldn't hold the sound. Sometimes heartbreak doesn't break. It empties. And the emptiness is worse because it echoes. On the third day, my sister called. She didn't know everything, just that I'd needed space. But siblings can hear the truth under lies. Her voice softened. "Where are you?" "Nowhere," I said. "Then come be nowhere with me." That's how I ended up in her guest room, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like lavender and home. She made tea, sat beside me, and didn't ask a single question. Sometimes love sounds like silence too, but the healing kind. That night, I scrolled through old photos. Our wedding day, his smile wide, eyes full of promises he hadn't learned to break yet. The honeymoon, his arm around me, the caption, "My forever." I almost deleted them all. But then I stopped. Because pretending the good never happened doesn't make the bad hurt less. It just erases the proof that you tried. If you've ever walked away from someone and felt both heartbreak and relief in the same breath, drop me in the comments. Because sometimes leaving doesn't mean you stopped loving them. It means you finally started loving yourself. I thought silence meant peace, but on the fourth night, peace showed me how much noise a memory can make when it refuses to let you rest. By the end of that week, everyone knew. Not because I told them, but because secrets in small circles move faster than the truth itself. A friend of a friend saw him somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. Someone else heard I'd moved out. And suddenly, my phone wasn't just full of missed calls from Daniel. It was buzzing with sympathy from people who never texted me when I was happy. "We're so sorry. You two looked perfect." Maybe it's just a phase. You should talk to him before it's too late. Too late for what? Too late to keep pretending? The first time I went out alone, I could feel the eyes. At the grocery store, the cashier's smile was a little too soft, the kind that says, "I know what happened." Two women in the next aisle whispered and lowered their voices when I walked by. My hands trembled so badly I dropped a can of soup. I left everything and walked out, because sometimes humiliation feels heavier than hunger. I sat in the car, hands gripping the wheel, heart pounding like it wanted to run faster than the rest of me could. That's when my sister said something I'll never forget. "Let them talk. You survived something they only gossip about." But gossip finds new shapes. Old friends started reaching out, some because they cared, others because they were curious. One called just to say she'd always thought Daniel looked like the type. I didn't know there was a type for betrayal. Another told me I should forgive him. "He made a mistake," she said. "You'll regret walking away from a good man." A good man doesn't make you feel small in your own house. But people love fixing broken things that aren't theirs. Social media was worse. Our photos still sat there, smiling, uncracked. Every time I scrolled past one, it felt like watching ghosts of a life that had never really existed. He still hadn't taken them down either. Maybe he liked the illusion that everything was fine. Maybe I did too. One night, I opened his profile. The comments under our anniversary post were still there. Little hearts. Couple goals. Love this so much. Each one felt like a knife. I almost deleted my account. Instead, I posted a blank image. No caption, no explanation, just silence. Within minutes, people started commenting. "Are you okay? We're praying for you. Did something happen between you and Daniel?" I turned off my phone. Because the world isn't built to watch women break quietly. Later that night, I found myself whispering into the dark. Why do I feel ashamed for what he did? And that's when it hit me. The hardest part of betrayal isn't the loss. It's the blame it leaves behind. Everyone wants a reason. Everyone needs a villain. And somehow they always find her in the woman who refused to stay. But shame is stubborn. It stays until you decide to starve it. And I was finally ready to stop feeding it. The hardest part of starting over isn't the loneliness. It's the routine. The way ordinary things still belong to the life you lost. The morning coffee that still tastes like his favorite brand. The empty side of the bed that still folds itself like it's waiting. The keys that still jingle with the same sound as when he'd walk in. Grief hides in the smallest corners of your day. I tried to build a new rhythm. Wake up early. Go for walks. Eat on time. Smile at strangers just to remember what it feels like. But the ghost of him was everywhere. The smell of his cologne on a passing man. The sound of his laugh on some TV show. Even the songs I used to love betrayed me. They all had his name between the lyrics. One night, I tried to cook dinner. Something simple. Pasta with garlic and butter. Halfway through, I stopped. It was his favorite meal. I couldn't even stir the sauce without hearing his voice saying, "Don't burn the garlic this time." I dropped the spoon and sat on the floor. The pasta boiled over, and I didn't move. Because sometimes moving feels like pretending you're okay. Days blurred. Work emails piled up. I didn't open them. I'd stand in the shower until the water ran cold, hoping it could wash off everything he left on me. The lies, the guilt, the way he made me doubt my own worth. When my sister asked if I was eating, I lied. I said yes. Because admitting you're falling apart feels like giving him another victory. But I was crumbling. And pretending to be strong is its own kind of exhaustion. Then one morning, I looked at the clock and realized I'd slept through the night. No dreams. No panic. Just silence. It scared me, because peace felt unfamiliar. I sat up and whispered into the empty room, "You don't get to live here anymore." It wasn't for him. It was for the memories that had turned my body into a museum of what he broke. That morning I made coffee again. I didn't make his brand, I made mine. That's the thing about ghosts. They only haunt what still belongs to them, and piece by piece, I was taking my life back. But I didn't know that ghosts can call too, and sometimes they sound exactly like the man you finally stopped missing. It had been almost 3 weeks since I'd left. I'd stopped counting the days, until the phone rang. Unknown number, late evening, the kind of hour that used to belong to him. For a second, I thought it might be work, or a friend. Then I heard his voice. "Hey." Just that. 2 letters and 1,000 memories. I froze. Every nerve in my body went back to the woman I used to be, the one who'd drop everything to answer. But this time, I stayed quiet. "I know you don't want to talk," he said softly. "I just need a minute. Please." Silence stretched. He sighed. "I messed up, okay? You don't need to say it. I know." I could hear it in his tone. He wasn't calling for forgiveness. He was calling for comfort. Because guilt sounds a lot like love when you're desperate enough to confuse the two. "I never meant to hurt you," he continued. "It was stupid. It didn't mean anything." That line again. It didn't mean anything. As if betrayal comes with receipts you can return. I let him talk. Let him try to fill the silence he once used to control me. Then I said, "You're right. It didn't mean anything. That's what hurts most." He hesitated. "So what now? Are we really done?" I almost laughed. He still didn't understand. We weren't done. We'd been done the moment he chose someone else, and still expected me to keep loving him the same. "There's nothing left to finish, Daniel," I said quietly. "You ended it. I'm just refusing to stay for the encore." He went quiet for a long moment, then, almost whispering, "I miss you." And for a split second, I almost answered, "I miss you too." But then I remembered how missing him had cost me myself. "You don't miss me," I said. "You miss control. You miss the version of me who didn't know better." He tried to speak, but I hung up. Not out of anger, out of mercy. Because some doors don't deserve to be closed gently. I sat there staring at the wall for a long time. The quiet that followed didn't feel empty this time. It felt earned, like air after drowning. I deleted his number. Not because I hated him, but because I didn't trust my heart not to remember it. Then I blocked the new one too, because control wears many phone numbers. That night, I wrote again, on another motel notepad. He called. I didn't answer twice. It was only 6 words, but they felt like a declaration of independence. I thought that was the end of it. But guilt has a habit of coming back, wearing someone else's voice. And the next call I got wasn't from him. The next call didn't come from him. It came from her. Unknown number again. Different tone. Soft, uncertain. I almost didn't answer, but something in me, maybe morbid curiosity, maybe unfinished pain, made me swipe anyway. "Hi, is this," she paused, "Daniel's wife?" For a second I couldn't breathe. That word, wife, hit different when someone else said it out loud. "Not anymore," I said. "Who's this?" Silence. Then a shaky exhale. "My name's Lauren." And just like that, the ghost had a name. She started talking fast, like she'd been rehearsing this call in her head for weeks. Apologies spilling over each other, half excuses, half confessions. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. "He told me you two were separated, that you'd moved out." I let her speak. Because sometimes the truth comes easiest when people think they're explaining, not confessing. "He said you were unhappy," she continued, "that you'd fallen out of love with him, that he was lonely." I closed my eyes. The same story he told me in different words. He'd always been good at rewriting reality, at turning himself into the victim of his own choices. "And you believed him," I said quietly. She hesitated. "I wanted to." There it was. Honesty. Small, trembling, but real. "So why are you calling me now?" I asked. "Because he's lying again." That caught my attention. She went on. "He's been calling me nonstop since you left, saying he misses me, that you're just going through a phase and he'll fix it." Her voice cracked. "He said you'd take him back eventually, and that I should just be patient." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The man who broke two hearts was still juggling both, like pain was his favorite game. "He doesn't miss either of us," I said. "He misses being the hero in someone's story." Lauren was quiet for a while. Then she whispered, "I think I'm pregnant." The world tilted again. Everything inside me went still. She kept talking, words tumbling out between tears. She didn't know what to do. He hadn't answered her calls since she told him. He'd blocked her. "I thought you should know," she said finally. "You deserve the truth, even if it's late." When the call ended, I sat there, staring at nothing. Not because I cared about him anymore, but because I couldn't believe how easily one person's selfishness could create so much collateral damage. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I felt clarity. He wasn't a mistake I'd survived. He was a lesson I'd learned. And she was just the next student in line. I didn't call him, didn't text, didn't warn him. I just whispered into the empty room, "You deserve each other." Then I turned off my phone. For good this time. But sometimes closure doesn't come when you block their number. It comes when you finally stop needing the apology they'll never give. And a week later, I got mine. But not from him. A week passed before the next message came. Not from Daniel. Not from Lauren. From his mother. The name glowing on my phone felt like an old wound reopening. We hadn't spoken since the wedding anniversary the year before, when she toasted to us and said, "I hope you love each other enough to survive yourselves." I never understood what she meant until now. "Please don't hang up," she said when I answered. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from." I stayed quiet, because even anger felt too exhausting to offer anymore. She continued, voice trembling. "He told me what happened, about the other woman, about you leaving." A pause. "I'm not calling to defend him." That surprised me. "Then why are you calling?" I asked softly. "To say I'm sorry." Her words cracked something I didn't know was still breakable. Because in 6 years of marriage, Daniel had never once said those words sincerely, and now his mother was saying them for him. She told me things I never expected to hear. That his father had done the same to her years ago. That Daniel grew up watching silence win every argument. That he learned early that love was something you kept, even when you had to lie to keep it. "He's not a monster," she said quietly. "But he's also not the man you deserve." There was no defense, no justification, just honesty, wrapped in sadness. "He called me crying last night," she continued. "He said he lost everything." "He didn't lose everything," I replied. "He gave it away." She sighed. I told him the same thing. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Two women on opposite sides of the same storm. One who had stayed, and one who finally learned how to leave. "You did the right thing walking away," she said. "I didn't, and I live with that every day." When the call ended, I cried. Not for Daniel, for her. For every woman who learned too late that endurance isn't love. It wasn't forgiveness I felt. It was freedom. The kind that comes when the truth finally stops whispering and starts roaring. Later that evening, I lit a candle and sat by the window. I didn't pray for him. I didn't curse him. I just said thank you. To the version of me that had finally learned when enough was enough. But just when I thought peace had finally settled in, life decided to test whether I'd really learned the lesson. Because 2 nights later, he showed up at my door. It was close to midnight when I heard the knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps, the kind you feel more than you hear. My sister was asleep upstairs, the house wrapped in that kind of silence that makes every sound feel intrusive. At first, I thought it was a mistake. "No one visits that late." Then came his voice. "It's me." The world shrank around that sentence. My heart didn't race. It froze. I opened the door halfway. There he was. Daniel. Same gray hoodie, same pleading eyes that used to melt me, only now they looked hollow. A man made smaller by his own choices. "You shouldn't be here," I said quietly. He stepped closer anyway, hands out like peace offerings. "Please, just 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." I wanted to slam the door, but curiosity can still whisper even when you've sworn off listening. so I let him in. He didn't sit. He just stood in the middle of the living room, turning his wedding ring around his finger like it was some kind of confession. "You look different," he said. "You've lost weight." "It's called peace," I said flatly. He smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. "I deserve that. You deserve more than that. But I'm tired of handing out what you've already wasted." He nodded slowly, then looked down at the floor like it might tell him what to say next. "I've been thinking about us, about everything." "You mean about what you destroyed?" "I made a mistake." "No," I interrupted. "A mistake is spilling coffee on someone's shirt. You built an entire lie and lived in it." He didn't argue. For once, he didn't try to rewrite my pain. Instead, he sat down and whispered, "I don't even know why I did it. She doesn't mean anything." "She's pregnant, Daniel." His head snapped up, eyes wide, shock bleeding into confusion. "What?" "Lauren called me." The color drained from his face. He leaned back, exhaling like the world had just punched him. She told you?" "She told me everything." He ran a hand over his face, whispering to himself, "I didn't know. I swear I didn't." I almost believed him, because guilt looks a lot like truth when it's desperate enough. "You don't have to explain," I said. "This isn't my problem anymore." He looked up at me then, really looked, like he was seeing me for the first time. "You used to love me." "I still do," I said softly. "Just not enough to destroy myself for it." He started crying then, not the dramatic kind, quiet tears that slid down like a man finally meeting his consequences. For a second, the part of me that remembered his kindness wanted to comfort him. But the woman I'd become held her ground. "You want forgiveness?" I asked. "Here it is. I forgive you. But that doesn't mean I'll forget who you were when you thought I'd never leave." He wiped his face, then whispered, "I wish I could go back." "You can't," I said. "And neither can I." He stood, nodding, his shoulders sinking under the weight of what he'd finally lost. "Goodbye, then," he said. "Goodbye, Daniel." He turned toward the door, then stopped. "She's keeping it," he said quietly. "Good," I replied. "Maybe this time you'll learn what it means to stay." He left without another word. The air behind him felt lighter, like the house had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. I thought that was the end of our story. But some endings don't fade quietly. They echo, especially when you start learning who you are without the person who tried to define you. After Daniel left that night, I didn't cry, not one tear, and that's when I knew. I was finally healing. Because real healing doesn't come with a bang. It comes quietly, in the space where chaos used to live. For the first time in months, I slept. Not the restless kind full of nightmares, and flashback the deep kind, the kind your body gives you when it realizes you've stopped living in survival mode. When I woke up, the world didn't feel as heavy. The air tasted different, clean. That morning, I made a promise to myself. No more looking back, no checking his socials, no replaying what ifs, no more trying to fix what someone else broke on purpose. I started walking again. At first, just down the street, then around the block, then miles at a time. Each step felt like an exhale I'd been holding for too long. I joined a local yoga group. Nothing fancy, just strangers breathing through the same pain in different shapes. The instructor said something on the first day that stuck with me. Your body remembers everything you've survived, but it also remembers how to let go. And slowly, it did. I started therapy. The first session was awkward. I didn't know where to begin, so I started with the truth. "I don't want to hate him," I said. "I just don't want him to live in my head anymore." The therapist nodded. "Then stop renting him the space," she said. That one line changed everything. Each week we peeled back layers I didn't know existed. How control had turned into love. How I'd mistaken fear for loyalty. How silence had become my language. Healing wasn't pretty. Some days I felt strong enough to move mountains. Other days, I felt like one was sitting on my chest. But every time I showed up, I was reminding myself that I was worth saving. Little things started to change. I bought new sheets, the color he hated. Painted my nails red, the shade he once said was too loud. And I laughed, really laughed, when my sister walked in and said, "You look like yourself again." "No," I told her. "I look like someone new." Because healing doesn't return you to who you were before. It builds someone wiser in her place. I started writing again too. Not about him, about me. About the woman who forgot her worth, and the one who remembered it in the ruins. I shared one of my stories online. It wasn't about revenge, it was about recovery. About how walking away doesn't mean weakness, it means survival. Within hours, comments flooded in. Women from everywhere. Different names, same stories. And for the first time, I realized my pain wasn't isolated. It was universal. If you've ever had to rebuild yourself after someone broke your trust, tell me one thing that helped you heal. Your words might become someone else's first step toward peace. But healing has stages, and forgiveness was the hardest one. Because forgiving him wasn't the challenge. Forgiving myself for staying so long was. It happened when I least expected it. A grocery store aisle, of all places. Cold air, quiet music, ordinary day. I was reaching for a carton of milk when I heard someone say my name. That voice, that tone. Even before I turned around, I knew. Daniel. For a second, time folded in on itself. The world shrank to that single sound. The one I'd once called home. He looked older. Not by years, but by regret. Dark circles, tired eyes, the confidence that used to fill every room now replaced by something small, something softer. Hey, he said. Didn't think I'd run into you here. Life's full of surprises, I replied, gripping the card a little tighter than I needed to. He nodded slowly, as if trying to read the temperature of my forgiveness. You look good. I am, I said. For a while, neither of us spoke. The space between us was crowded with things we'd never say again. Then he sighed. She had the baby. My heart fluttered, not with jealousy, but with curiosity. Healthy? Yeah, he said quietly. A little girl. I smiled, small but genuine. That's good. He looked down, ashamed by my kindness. Because sometimes, mercy hurts more than anger ever could. I'm sorry, he whispered. For everything. And in that moment, I believed him. Not because his words fixed anything, but because they no longer had the power to break me. Forgiveness is strange. It doesn't come when you say I forgive you. It comes when you realize their name doesn't taste like bitterness anymore. I looked at him and saw the truth. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was free. I forgive you, I said softly. He blinked, as if he'd expected a fight instead of peace. You mean that? Yes, I said. But forgiveness isn't an invitation back into my life. It's just proof that I finally have one without you. He nodded. Tears filled his eyes, but I didn't flinch. Because those tears didn't belong to me anymore. Take care of her, I added. Be better this time. And then I walked away. No dramatic goodbye. No music playing in the background. Just footsteps. Steady, certain, unshakable. When I got home, I stood in front of the mirror and whispered, You did it. Not because I forgave him, but because I forgave myself. For ignoring the red flags. For confusing control with love. For staying long after I should have left. Forgiveness didn't make me weaker. It made me lighter. But life has one more surprise waiting. Because sometimes, the universe rewards your healing with something, or someone, who finally understands how to hold you gently. Spring came early that year. The city was softer somehow, as if even the sky wanted to start over. I'd been living on my own for 6 months. No ghosts, no texts, no echoes of someone else's needs filling the rooms. Just me. And for the first time in years, that was enough. Then, one morning at the cafe near my apartment, someone held the door open for me. Simple gesture, normal, but kindness feels different when you've survived cruelty. You dropped this, he said, handing me my notebook. Oh, thank you. He smiled. Not the practice kind that hides intention, but the quiet, effortless kind that doesn't need anything in return. We exchanged a few words about coffee, the weather, nothing important. And yet, for the first time, I didn't feel the need to shrink myself to be liked. His name was Evan. We started seeing each other at the cafe every few mornings. No planning, no pressure. Just two strangers choosing the same table. One morning, he said, You write a lot. What about? I hesitated, then told him the truth. About remembering who I am. He nodded, not asking for more, just understanding. And that small, quiet respect was louder than any declaration of love I'd ever heard. We didn't rush. We didn't even call it dating at first. We just existed in the same piece, and it felt right. He never asked where I'd been. He only asked where I wanted to go next. He didn't try to fix me. He handed me tools so I could build myself. Once I caught him looking at me with a question in his eyes. "What is it?" I asked. "You don't flinch when people get close," he said softly. "That's rare. Most people carry their fear like armor." I smiled. "I used to, but I got tired of fighting ghosts." I didn't tell him everything. Not yet. But I told him enough, and he didn't look at me like I was damaged. He looked at me like I'd survived something sacred. That's when I realized love isn't supposed to feel like walking on glass. It's supposed to feel like walking barefoot on soft earth, steady, safe, alive. We sat by the lake one evening, the sky bruised with sunset, the world slowing down just long enough to breathe. He turned to me and said, "You talk about your past like it's a book you finished." I looked out at the water and smiled. Because it is, and I'm finally ready for the sequel. But the real ending didn't come from a new love. It came from what I finally learned standing there under that sky. The closure isn't given to you. It's written by the person who refuses to stay broken. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear echoes of the woman I used to be. The one who apologized for everything, who measured her worth by how much pain she could endure quietly. But now when she shows up, I don't push her away. I tell her thank you. Because she's the reason I'm here. She stayed long enough for me to learn, and she left just in time for me to live. Healing doesn't happen in straight lines. It loops, it lurches, it sometimes drags you backward before moving forward again. Some mornings I still wake up expecting to hear his voice, but instead I hear birds outside my window, a reminder that the world kept spinning even when I thought mine had stopped. And that's what recovery really is. Not forgetting the pain, but remembering that you survived it. I used to think strength meant never crying again. Now I know it means crying and still choosing to show up anyway. It means learning to smile without waiting for permission. It means taking yourself out to breakfast just because the sun is out. It means saying no without explaining why. For so long, I believed love was supposed to hurt a little, that if it didn't, it wasn't deep enough. But love that hurts isn't love. It's hunger disguised as devotion. Real love nourishes. And sometimes, the first person you have to feed is yourself. Every scar I carry now tells a different story. Not of what he did, but of what I chose to do after. They aren't ugly. They're proof that healing happened. I don't check his profile anymore. I don't replay our fights or rewrite our ending. I just breathe. And when I look in the mirror, I see someone I actually recognize. She's quieter now. Not because she's afraid, because peace doesn't need to announce itself. One evening, I went back to the cafe where I first met Evan. He was there, of course. Book in hand, same corner table. He looked up and smiled. And I realized something that made my heart settle. I didn't need him to complete me. I was already whole. He was just proof that life goes on beautifully when you stop trying to rewrite the past. And as I walked home that night under a quiet sky, I whispered to myself, "You didn't lose him. You found you." If you had told me a year ago that I'd thank the man who broke me, I would have laughed in your face. But I do now. Not because of what he did, but because of what it forced me to become. He taught me that silence can be dangerous, that love without respect is just control wearing perfume, and that the person who walks away isn't weak. She's the one brave enough to stop the cycle. I used to think closure came from apologies. Now I know closure is a decision. It's the moment you stop replaying the story and start writing a new one. There's no revenge, no grand comeback, just peace. The kind that hums quietly in your chest when you finally forgive the past for existing. I still remember the night I walked out, barefoot, shaking, the rain soaking through my clothes. I thought I was losing everything, but that night didn't take my life away. It gave it back to me. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not winning the argument, not proving them wrong, but realizing you don't owe anyone proof that you deserved better. If you're listening to this, and your heart feels heavy from a story that sounds too much like mine, remember this. You are not hard to love. You were just loving someone who didn't know how to receive it. And the day you stop begging to be understood, you start attracting people who already do. So here's to every woman who walked away, not because she stopped caring, but because she finally started caring about herself. If this story touched your heart tonight, tell me in the comments. What does freedom mean to you now? Your words might be the light someone needs in their darkest night. Thank you for watching Unlimited Mind Stories. Subscribe for more stories that remind us. Even after heartbreak, betrayal, and silence, you can always rebuild.